Auga, what's up? All right, in this one we're going to talk about white blood cells. But I wanted to do a little reminder that in our bones, that's where we make our red blood cells. Or that's where we make our blood cells, sorry. In our red marrow. It's where you make your blood. Which in our long bones is at the epiphysis of our long bones. It's a lot in our ribs and all that. I can go back to this. Let's go back to this skeletal system. This little image right here. So this is where we have our red marrow. So kind of our epiphysis of our large long bones, pelvis, vertebrae, ribs, clavicle, skull. That's where we make our blood cells. And these are all our different blood cells here. And we're going to go through all these and talk about these. Monocytes, neutrophils, basophils, platelets, plasma, lymphocyte, red blood cell, eosinophil. That's kind of the goal of this lecture. And then we're going to talk about, real quick, how we stop a bloody mess. How do we stop a bloody mess? Okay, so we got our red marrow. And we're going to do a little something like this. Okay, so what do we got coming from this bad boy? We got ourselves, let's draw real simple like so. Ooh. Like this. We got a, it looks kind of sad, we got a stem cell. I got to fix that nucleus, it doesn't look quite right to me. We got a stem cell. All right, stem cell. Which is a cell that can become other cells. A cell that can become other cells. We haven't talked about cancer and things like that, but you think about when a sperm meets an egg, we're one cell, and that cell can become a brain cell, a blood cell, a skin cell, a muscle cell, a nerve cell, so on and so forth. That is an omnipotent stem cell. This stem cell is pluripotent. Omni means many, pluri or all. Pluri means multiple, but not all. I don't need these headphones on. I don't know why I have them on. This cell can become other cells. Inside of red marrow, it can become types of blood cells. All right, well, what's the first type of blood cell that we all think about? Red blood cells. So this bad boy, well, I wanted to color. It can be, wow, no, gosh, Lord, help me, Jesus. Buddha, Tao, let's do this. Okay, so this guy can become red blood cells, and we'll just draw those as little red circles. That one is a little big. Okay, so it can become red blood cells. Red blood cells, otherwise known as erythrocytes. 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 And we know what these do. I just had a whole lecture on them. I'm not going to draw on what they do because we know what they do. Okay, the other thing that they can become is white blood cells. So they can become white blood cells. And there's different types though. So white blood cells. And that's what we're going to go through here. So first up, this cell can become not only red blood cell, but it can become white blood cells. And one of the types that it can become is called a neutrophil. That name comes from the way when we stain it, it's neutral looking. Neutrophil. And these guys kind of look like this. I'll draw it as blue. They're kind of like purpley blue. They look like this. And I'm going to draw it fat. I'm going to draw like three like lobed looking nuclei. And then these are all connected together. Something like that. And they'll have like little granules in them. So what do these guys do? Neutrophil. These are our first line of defense against infection. So you get a cut. Let's say you get a cut. If you get a cut, these swarm in and engulf bacteria, or they spew their guts out, which contain enzymes to eat bacteria. So that's kind of what these guys do. First line of defense. They are what pus is made out of. Pus is a bunch of neutrophils. It's a bunch of white blood cells. It's a bunch of neutrophils. They are what pus is made out of. Pretty cool. Okay, let's now talk about what's next. Let's talk about basophils. And this is actually the rarest. White blood cells, but I kind of want to talk about it next. Basophils. So they look similar to a neutrophil. Nucleus, kind of, it's not as lobed, but it can be. The nucleus is usually harder to see in these. I'll draw it as like, yeah, something like that. That seems about right. But these guys have a bunch of purple granules. And I'll put you guys on a mission to try to find me one of these. These things are very rare. It's like 0.04% or something of your blood cells, or your white blood cells. So basophils. These guys go to sites of infection and release histamine. Histamine, this signals to other white blood cells to come on over. It also makes your blood system, your capillaries, very small veins, your veins leaky. So this increases fluid flow to the site. Increases fluid flow to the site. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the cardiovascular system. Pretty nifty. Okay, that's basophil. They release histamine. That is the most important thing. This is important for allergic reactions and things like that. It causes inflammation. So eventually would cause inflammation as well. All right, now we need kind of a counterpart to that. We have something called the eosinophil, and these guys are more pinkish. So these are neutral, basic, and these are a little more acidic. Kind of do the nuclei the same way as that. And granules. Eosinophil. Oh, I didn't label this guy. This is a basophil. Basophil. And eosinophil. 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 These guys are like firefighters. They put out the allergic reaction. So they kind of tamp it down. They also will surround parasites and dump enzymes on them to kill them. So if you have like a nematode, like a little worm or something in your digestive system, eosinophils will all collect around it and like blah, dump enzymes on them to kill them. Okay, I'm gonna move this stem cell up here, and this up here. All right, these are called our granulocytes. Don't really care that you know that, but they have granules. All right, now we've got looks kind of similar. I'll draw it in. I'll draw it in this blue, I guess. Got something like this. Pretty small, actually. Then it's got kind of a fat nucleus like that. It's called a lymphocyte. Lymphocyte. And these become two different things. These can become B cells or T cells. These guys very simply these make antibodies, like we talked about, antibodies against pathogens. Let's say pathogen is something that's infectious or causes disease. T cells attack cells. Very simply, they're specialized killers. We'll say that. Specialized killers. These make antibodies against pathogens. So this is like memory for your immune system. So anytime you get a vaccination, you're activating your B cells to make antibodies that will then protect you against any of the real infection. That's the idea behind a vaccine, is that you put in kind of a dead virus that doesn't actually function, or something that will code for a part of a virus protein. That's the idea behind it. And then your B cells will make antibodies for you to protect you against a future infection. That's how the flu vaccine works, for example. Okay, and then we have monocytes, which are big, they're kind of like big lymphocytes. Like so. Monocytes. And these are big, huge swallowers. Swallowers. So a monocyte will, let's say, go to your lung and become a very specialized type of cell. We'll go to various parts of your body. We'll go to, in your lung, I believe they're called mast cells, go to various parts of your body and become what are called specialized macrophages. And phage means to eat. So they're the things that eat things. So if I go way up here, the monocytes make up your macrophages that eat things. This thing here, this big bad boy that's swallowing up this bacteria, this is a macrophage. So this would be maybe just a monocyte because it's just in the bloodstream. You don't need to know the specific types, but like in your brain versus in your lungs versus in your liver versus in your underneath your skin, these macrophages are called different names. I don't really care that you know what they are. I don't even know what they all are. I forget. Okay, so these are your white blood cells. We got our red blood cells, erythrocytes. Then we got our white blood cells. And if you want to know the order of frequency, never let monkeys eat bananas. So this is neutrophil, lymphocyte, monocyte, eosinophil, basophil. Never let monkeys eat bananas. That's the frequency that they show up. So that you have the most neutrophils, then lymphocytes, then monocytes,
than eosinophils and basophils. Another name for these is leukocyte. So yeah, that's a name for a white. That's like erythrocyte is red for red blood cells. Leukocyte is for white blood cells. Okay, now there's another specialized type of blood cell that this makes. Last but not least. Okay, and this is a big, 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 big boy. Bigger than this. Let's draw it in this color. Something like that, maybe. Boom. And this is called a mega. This is not a white blood cell. It's not part of your immune system. So this is a mega karyocyte. So karya, if you remember, means nucleus. So it's a mega nucleus cell. Mega nucleus cell. Okay, and what does this bad boy do? I'm just going to put it there. Not a white blood cell. Just so we're clear. All right, well, what this guy does is off of this little thing, there are little fragments breaking off. So it's basically pinching off little fragments of itself. So it pinches off little fragments of itself. And these little things are called platelets. These are platelets. Platelets, which clot our blood. Okay? It's pretty nifty. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we're all set for this lecture. Okay, so let's talk about that. So this single stem cell can become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then these can specialize, these can specialize. You know, this thing can become all these different cells. It's pretty crazy, but it all starts off as this hemopoietic stem cell is what it's called. It's potent to become blood cells. All right, so let's draw a part of our cardiovascular system. We're going to draw like a capillary or artery or vein or something like that. And we're going to have red blood cells, let's say, kind of cruising through here. Okay, and we're going to have some of these little platelets. Draw them as like little hunks like that, cruising through. Okay. All right, well, let's say we get a little woundy wound. Boom, boom, boom. Oh no, we got a little woundy. We got a little oochies, ouchies. Oh no. Well, as these blood cells flow by, some of them are going to start to leak out. They're going to leak out like so. Let's say our blood is flowing in this direction. They're going to start to leak out. All right. Well, what happens is these platelets, I'm trying to cruise through this quick, they will actually recognize some of the extracellular matrix here, like collagen fibers and things like that, and they will bind to it. So these will stick, these little platelets will stick. It will stick to the extracellular matrix, the fibers out there, you know, like so. And when they do that, they actually, rather than being kind of little fragments like this, they start to they stick their little arms out. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to grab onto each other. like so, okay? When they sense the matrix, they change shape. And they stick out their little arms to grab on. Sticking out their little arms to grab onto each other. All right, let's copy this bad boy one more time and keep adding to this. Then eventually what happens is we keep adding more and more of these on here, and they start to also release something else. Let's draw a couple more of these little ninja star looking dudes. And they also start to release kind of like a thread-like own matrix of themselves. I don't like that being quite so bright. Which will also help stuff grab onto them, like so. So now we can have another cell grab on, and another cell, and another, and then we're going to have more thread. This thread is called fibrin. Fibrin, it's a protein, it's thread-like protein. And then we're going to have so on and so forth. And now you've got something called clot formation. Clot formation. And so then you got your clot. So now bleeding has stopped. Do. Any red blood cells that come through here and try to leave, they might get stuck, but they're going to continue to flow on through as well. And they're certainly not going to be able to escape. Okay? And then eventually this process will heal up. Okay, so we got, let me kind of draw in the different steps here. We've got the wound. We've got platelets detect. Platelets bind to wound. Bind to wound. Platelets change shape. And they add fibrin to hold on to more platelets. And then clot covers wound. Pretty nifty stuff indeed. I think I have a little quick video on this that's pretty nifty. We'll watch that and that'll be the end of that. The end of this lecture. So you can get a nice little idea of what this looks like. Oh no, wait, this is inner life of the cell. Where is my, here it is. Platelet activation. Kind of high production video here.
In a first step towards clot formation, platelets are recruited to the site of vessel injury by now exposed molecules of the vessel wall, such as collagen and von Willebrand factor. This factor mediates the linking of platelets to collagen via a specific receptor in the platelet membrane. The resulting change of shape of the platelet from its resting state into the dendritic form indicates activation. The activated platelet in turn releases prothrombotic molecules such as adenosine diphosphate, ADP. By binding to its receptors, ADP induces aggregation. And recruits further platelets to the site. Thromboxane is another important mediator of platelet activation and aggregation. Under its influence, the platelets cross-link with each other. These interlocking mechanisms cause platelet activation to snowball. The clot grows rapidly. Activated platelets also trigger the coagulation cascade and thus the formation of thrombin. Thrombin, in turn, stimulates platelet activation even further, a continuous feedback loop. Additionally, thrombin induces the formation of fibrin for the mesh stabilizing the clot. The self-reinforcing process of platelet activation, crucial in the formation of blood clots, is an obvious therapeutic target in conditions caused by inappropriately triggered blood coagulation.
Very cool. So if you're a hemophiliac, for example, you lack the ability to clot your blood. And so even a very small injury could be fatal because you don't have a way to stop that bleeding. So that video went into slightly more details than we care that you know. As long as you know that this kind of general cascade and platelets bind, they change their shape, they make this net of fibrin, and that helps stop the bleeding through forming of this clot. All right, guys. Now we move on to the heart and the cardiovascular system. We're done with the blood. I'll see you in the next one.